This is the RV Game Changer. In this podcast, we will speak with manufacturing leaders, component suppliers, dealers, subsector innovators, influencers, and industry experts who all believe RVing is good for our environment. It's good for our economy. It's great for our family values and overall well-being. With your help, we can improve the RV experience for everyone. And today's guest is Tom Kline of Better Vantage Point. Owning and running a dealership can feel like trying to tuck an octopus in bed and the tentacles keep flopping out. So Tom appreciates and understands this, as for 30 years, he was a dealership franchise owner. Kline specializes in solving dealership problems through risk mitigation remedies, compliance, and dispute resolution, i.e. tucking in the tentacles. He is the lead consultant and founder of Better Vantage Point, Tuck the Octopus, a new early efforts governance, risk, and compliance GRC program, and alwaysdobetter.com. He has worked both public and private dealerships. Kline's ideas have been featured on the Wall Street Journal and Automotive News, and he routinely speaks at national conferences, workshops, and 20 groups. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce you, Tom Kline. Tom, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining RV Game Changer.
Thanks, Bernie. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the radio voice introduction there. The voice of God. I appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, hopefully I wasn't too over the top there for you, Tom.
No. All good. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah, my pleasure. You know, Tom, before we get started, this is very important information, and I truly want folks who run and work at dealerships to better understand the services you provide. But I'm going to ask you a big favor first, okay? So please speak to us like we're a bunch of fifth graders so we can get a good handle on how truly valuable this information is to us, okay?
Absolutely.
All right. Would you be so kind to tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started in this line of work?
Yep. So I guess back to my RV roots. I did a lot of work for Newt Kinland at Holiday RV way back in the day, and that's when I really understood and enjoyed the industry. And then I was a dealership owner myself for 30 years, and we sold our stores in 2019. And then I went out on my own in my consulting business.
So you own a dealership for 30 years. I mean, you only look like you're in your mid 40s. So you started it when you were 8 years old, I guess. So
yeah. My first summers at the store were literally sweeping the gravel because that was before we had paved lots. Yeah, so I had to even the gravel out, because when people take off, all the rocks get thrown up and all that kind of thing.
You make some ruts and things like that. So you started on here. Like for me, I grew up in a farm area, so I was shoveling horse manure as an 8, 9, 10-year-old, so that was my gig. But I understand, hey, starting at the very bottom allows you to have better and more complete insight. So
a better vantage point, for example.
Oh, there you go. So people are probably wondering, what are risk mitigation remedies, compliance, or tucking in the tentacles? I mean, it sounds like a pretty interesting concept for sure.
Yeah, and so my job is to prevent problems from happening at the dealership. And I use the analogy of tuck the octopus because running a dealership is like trying to tuck an octopus into bed, but the tentacles keep flopping all over the place.
Oh, I know. I can't imagine. I mean, you try to do it with a 40-pound dog, it's just as difficult, I guess, by that. Yeah.
That's right. And
but so you multiply times 4, yeah.
That's right. Or in an octopus case, they have 9 brains, I'm told. So
oh, wow. They are very smart.
1 brain, and then, a brain for each tentacle. But my job is to make sure that things run smoothly, that if there are problems, there are ways to fix those problems, or that the employees know what to do about the problems. It can be something super basic, like what happens if a local news crew rolls up and says, hey, I understand, that Mrs. McGillicuddy's RV has been here for a year. She bought it new a year ago, And the lot attendant says, yeah, well, it's really a problem. We've been trying to fix it, and we just can't seem to get it right. Do you have a media policy, right?
Right, right. And I'm
That's
sure you have other things besides lock yourself in your office or in the bathroom or something. I'm sure there's other ways of going about it.
absolutely. You say we have a spokesperson. Let me get your card, and let me make sure they know you're here, and I'm sure they'll be happy to talk to you. And then you've got to deal with the issue. But more importantly, what are you doing about making sure that you know what the problems are that are at the store? Can you, for example, booby trap your employees to make sure they run with bad news and walk with good news, right? So that the dealer owner can make decisions about what to do about those problems early on. Because when you try to fix a problem early on, that's when it's going to be the least expensive to fix the problem, right? By the time when a lawyer gets involved, or a regulatory body, the Federal Trade Commission or the state attorney general, or there's a lot of different regulators that regulate our industry. But when they get involved, everything gets more expensive and more complicated, more time consuming. And so my job as a risk mitigation guy is go in and take a look at the entire organization, find the hidden problems that the dealers may or may not know about. Because of all my years in the business, I know where all the bodies are buried, and
You know where to look.
and how to find them.
Yeah, yeah.
And then to go in and start fixing problems immediately. And candidly, part of that process is making sure that dealers have the right insurance policies. That's a big stickler with our dealers.
There you go.
They don't necessarily understand what's in their policy. So the first part is to make sure that they're educated, that they can know what the policies mean. We'll go over each line item, so I make sure they know. And then when we do shop their policies, and I don't sell insurance myself,
right?
But when we shop their policies, that we go, when we get them back, we can go through them quietly and calmly, instead of the agent running in 3 days before the deadline and say, you only got a 27% renewal this year. You should feel real good about that. And the dealer's like, 27%, hold on. Right. And so,
right. So it's a better idea for them to understand their liability as a dealership, and then how to protect themselves in that liability, and understand the details of the insurance policy, so they know where the cracks in the foundation are there. So things that they really have to protect themselves against that no insurance may even cover.
That's right.
But being part of a bigger dealership like I am, I'm with Campers Inn, and they do a lot of employee training, and as a family-owned dealership body, we regularly do education and testing per our department mandates, and we are instructed to take certain compliance training. And what are some of the topics which RV dealerships may mandate their employees to study and test on?
Yeah, I think it's important to have routine compliance training and testing. And training doesn't have to be an all-day thing. It can literally be a 10 or 15-minute training. And I advocate doing that once a month, so that if you have a problem, there's a lawyer who comes and inquires or sends a lawsuit, or again, a regulator comes in and says, what are you guys doing? You say, look, we routinely train our employees on all variety of topics. For example, do your employees know who to go to with a problem?
No, I mean, that could be a complicated situation. Where do I turn in this situation, right? And every situation is differently. If, say, for instance, it's a harassment scenario and someone in leadership is involved in it, where do I go?
That's correct.
Right?
And so it's something that simple that needs to be fleshed out within the organization. So the employees know, okay, well, if my manager's my problem, then do I know to go to their manager and say, hey, I'm having a problem with my manager. I need somebody to intercede, and that kind of thing. And so compliance training, so to speak, isn't always about laws and regulations and what you should do and what you can't do, and advertising issues and website issues and cookie consent banners and all those. There's a myriad of it. In fact, I have a list of a fairly complete list of the laws and rules and regulations that we're supposed to follow, and it's 48 pages long. It took me 20 years or 30 years to put it together.
Wow.
But it's 48 pages long, and it's crazy long, right? So it's not always about this law or this rule or this regulation. For example, one of the things I advocate for all dealers is make sure you have a mechanism to make sure that all your customers are happy, because when your customers or your employees are unhappy, that's where most of the problems start. I call these the two-legged problems, right?
Okay.
Problems at dealerships arrive on two legs, right? It's either customers or it's employees. That's where most of your problems are. So if you're solving your customer problems and solving your employee problems, then you're going to be in relatively good shape.
Sounds simple, but I know it's not that simple.
That's right. And especially, for example, with RVs, when some of the things that break, maybe a warranty issue, maybe it's not a warranty issue, maybe the dealership's going to cover it, maybe the dealership isn't going to cover it, depends on what the issue is, depends on a lot of things, right? And so it's important for everyone to be customer centric, to solve problems so that everybody knows what their authority is to solve problems, right? Some companies don't want frontline people solving anything. They just want them to take it to their manager. It's just a matter of what the corporate culture is like.
So Tom, it sounds like you're not just into covering all the legalities and mandates that the federal government kind of imposes on us, but you're also consulting about like reducing risk through better customer service and things of that nature. So you're talking about operations, policies, and communications between employees and leadership, or employees and end users and things of that nature.
Right. That's correct. Risk is all around us. And when you're a dealer and you put your feet on the floor in the morning, you've got risk. That's just how it is. And just to kind of change your thinking maybe a little bit on compliance, all compliance is someone has to do something at some point in time. Someone has to do something at some point in time. So if you have a sales meeting at 8 o'clock on Monday morning and you're required to be there, that's really a compliance item, right? Someone has to do something at some point in time. You have to be at that meeting. Okay. That's right. When we're talking about corporate governance from kind of the 40,000 foot view, someone has to do something gives a framework to the business. And there are software programs that will help dealerships kind of give that framework some backbone.
Okay.
That will help management to track if that someone is doing that something at some point in time. And so it's important to really think about it from a more global perspective, rather than I have to do the disclosure in this way because this is the way that I was taught to do it, and this is the way to make sure all the boxes are checked and ticked in the truth in lending disclosure, and I presented all the items on the menu and all those kinds of things. So
I know, for instance, like I do about, I think it's 18 different compliance training and testing every year, but I like your idea of kind of checking on that on a regular basis, and maybe having a team leader who leads quarterly different aspects of that, because in a year's time, it doesn't stay fresh in your mind if you're not thinking about it all the time. So that's one big aspect of it.
It's when your processes slip, right?
Right.
You really don't know if your process is in place if somebody isn't checking on it. And that's what compliance is about, right? Is if you know that, how do you know your employees are following what you want them to from a management perspective? And the answer is, unless you have somebody checking behind them and auditing that, then you don't know. And I have groups that I work with that, 30 stores and 20 stores and 40 stores. And one of the most important things is to install someone at each of the stores to help with those activities. And that doesn't have to be a full-time job. That can be, 3 hours a week or something. But I think it's important.
When we're putting deals together, I have one of my managers who always says this is inspect what you expect. So, we have compliance just putting a deal packet together, right? So we have to put this folder together, and we have checklists on both sides of that front cover to make sure that we've covered all our bases. And, if someone has a trade and the, identification is handled properly, and making sure it's this way or that way, and keeping it all safe and, HIPAA safe. So can you talk a little bit about what kind of risks that customers put themselves in with a dealership that doesn't follow, say, the privacy rules?
Sure. So I know anecdotally of one customer at an RV store. This hasn't been published in the paper, but I got a phone call from an F&I manager who asked me a lot of questions about something called the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, which is the safeguards rule.
Right.
Excuse me. And the point of the safeguards rule is to make sure that the dealership is safeguarding the customer's PII, or personally identifiable information, to make sure that somebody doesn't steal their identity. So in this particular case, going back to what I said, the problems come in on two legs. This customer couldn't get approved for financing because she was a secondary customer and had poor credit. She came back to talk to the salesman. The salesman had her driver's license laying on a piece of paper on his desk, and she called the Federal Trade Commission.
Ouch.
Each violation is $51,744.
That hurts. Yeah.
So, and the FTC purposely has not defined what a violation is, because they want to leave that up to their discretion, right? Whether if you walk in and you have 10 different driver's licenses on a desk, is that 10 violations or one? Well, the Federal Trade Commission is going to say that's 10, right, for $510,000. So problems start on two legs. So you have to safeguard the customer information. That includes any information that goes between your computer systems. It's supposed to be encrypted.
Correct.
It's supposed to both at rest and in transit is the standard. So at rest means if it's sitting on your computer, and if you have a salesman who's got driver's licenses and tax returns and that kind of thing on his computer and it's not encrypted, that's a problem.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the Gramm-Leach-Bliley, I mean, we could spend hours just talking about that, because it's got a lot of tentacles to it.
There's a lot of areas. So basically, I think if I could summarize, and you're going to have to elaborate a little bit more on it, is that we are trying to protect the dealership by protecting the customer. Exactly. So we have to do both sides of the equation, and whether it be a trip and fall or a personal information violation or some other red flag of proving someone's identity, that's a big thing these days, where people do try to come in as their grandmother say, and to buy an RV, right?
It happens more often than you think. And I do expert witness work defending dealerships, and so I see these lawsuits because I get hired to talk about them.
Right.
And even when somebody's identity was stolen, if they come in and buy an RV from your dealership, they're going to try to hold you responsible for it.
Oh yeah, so we have to double and triple check stuff, and in our systems are in place that when our business managers submit certain information, it's already going through red flag kind of inspection automatically to make sure that those things don't occur, right? We have to protect our customers. And here's the thing, the customers are so important, but you got to realize your colleagues, the people that are working right alongside of you, we could all lose our jobs if we do not do our job correctly. It's so important that we follow these diligencies. So
Right. That's right. I mean, it's when you look at it from a corporate governance perspective, again, you follow these rules and these laws. They're there to protect the company that you work for. And you have to protect the company because they pay you, or you should protect the company because they're the ones that pay you. So by protecting them, they're going to protect you. So it's
right.
it's symbiotic, and these rules, most companies, I'm going to say most of the rules that they come up with, they don't just dream them up. There's a reason for them, and if you don't know why those are there, you should be able to ask somebody, why is this a rule? Why is this a thing? Why do I have to do this? What sense does this make?
So in your opinion, why is it that important to do all of this stuff? I've said a couple of things, but you have probably a different perspective on it, or even something that includes something else that I haven't even thought of.
Yeah, so I've seen instances, and it happens where when you don't do the right things, the business closes, or the business gets closed down. The manufacturer won't sell your product. On the car side, they'll pull the franchise if you're not doing the right things. If you have a catastrophic accident and a lawyer sues you, and you don't have the right insurance or the right amount of insurance, then the lawyer and his client will end up owning the dealership. I mean, it sounds far-fetched, but it's not. I like to say, don't get a case of the yets. A case of the yets is, I haven't had a problem yet, so I'm not going to have a problem.
Just like a leak in an RV, right? I haven't noticed a problem yet, so I haven't checked my roof. So, but if you, in one of these problems could be several hundred worth of RVs, right?
It could be
you have some of these serious issues, whether someone gets hurt because a camper wasn't inspected properly and something catastrophic happened, or something catastrophic happened to someone's identity. We have to realize we're taking risk for all of our coworkers, all of their families, all of our customers. It's so important that people do the right thing and do the right procedures and set up your checklist, right? Do you guys help companies design those checklists that make it a little bit more easier for them to follow along?
Absolutely. And, I mentioned software before. We'll come in and set those tasks, those repetitive tasks up on a software program so that people are pinged when they're supposed to go do things. Then they can upload the information and management can check it. And it alleviates all the back and forth of spreadsheets and emails and did you do this and why haven't you gotten it to me? And
have you designed that software? Is that something you have available to you, or you sub that out, or what's going on with that?
It's another company that I work with that has designed it.
All right.
And so it's off the shelf. It's a very, very simple, straightforward solution.
Well, we should talk a little bit off screen because I think that is fascinating. So it sounds like the sales consultants can do it right at their desk, and everything kind of gets notified to include certain documents, certain compliance issues, or whatever it may be in time, right? So that way you don't forget something while you're processing a deal. I know it's so long. It takes a little while. Once a customer says yes, there's a lot of stuff involved, and I have it kind of physically set up in my office to make sure everyone gets what they need. But boy, there's still a lot of running around back and forth, checking the boxes, where someone could just look and say, all right, Bernie submitted all of these documents. Everything's been checked. He's missing this one item. Let's see what's causing that, reason for that. And let's make sure the customer provides that to us, or we provide it for the customer so they can fill it out properly, or whatever it may be.
That's
so
right.
I love it. I love that idea. What a great idea. So that right there, you maybe bring it up. You are an RV game changer, because if you can organize and get those compliance paperwork on order on a salesperson's desk, you've just changed the life of so many RV salespeople and their managers.
Right. Absolutely. Because you need to get all that done so you can get, so you can cash the contract, right? Amongst other things.
Right. Yeah. As soon as you get the paperwork together and the customer does their paperwork and people get paid and the customer can pick up their RV and everything, and it saves a lot of time, like you say. You get this phone call or email from someone in service that you didn't submit this portion of this document or something to that effect. You never filled in that part of it. That's always like, oh my God, it's my day off. I got to drive to work to get that information over to service or whatever it may be. So,
That's right.
yeah, so that's fantastic. We talked a little bit before the show about this other company that you work with in Better Vantage Point. Can you talk to me a little bit more about that, or talk to us, and then the services you provide?
Yep. So Better Vantage Point. So I have another company called Always Do Better, which is the one I think you're thinking about.
Oh, yes. Always do better. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Always Do Better is a simple concept. It's we put up a sign that says we to all our team members and customers, we appreciate your feedback. Please use this QR code to give feedback to us so that we can better our processes and better serve you better. This goes to an anonymous third party who will then forward it to management. And we put up a QR code with the sign. We put them on the backs of the bathroom stalls. We put them at the exits to all the showrooms and to the service department. So if people leave upset, maybe the point here is to slow them down so they don't go on the internet and they don't trash the company on the internet, that we get an opportunity to solve the problem. And for that, I charge $129 per rooftop per month. And as a part of that, they get me to help them resolve any of the more difficult problems that come in.
Okay.
As I have personally resolved hundreds or thousands of customer problems in my years in the business, just by the nature of when I was at the store, everybody was only too happy to point to me and say, "Well, go take that to Tom." So I got the influx of all the issues.
So now you made this your profession.
So now I made it my profession. There you go. And so that's what alwaysdobetter.com does.
Well, I love that idea as well. So you're telling me, so if they click on this, or the QR code takes them to a place where they can get resolved. Now, is that brought to your database, and does it go through you before it gets to the dealer, or does it go?
It goes through me.
Yeah.
And because different dealerships want that information sent to different people, and so everybody's got the different kind of routing and the way they want to do that. And so, and I may have comments I want to put on top of it. So
sure.
And so I'll route it to whoever it is.
Always do better. I really love that idea, and that's another game changer. So what you're doing is, because people, when they're upset, right, like you say, they get on Google and they write a nastygram, and it could be an easily solvable issue. In many cases, it can be. Right. And so it's important that we help those people, because we want happy customers and turn into happy campers. But also, it's not always fair to the dealership to have that, have those kind of build up those negative reviews. And people, when they have a good experience, they expect a good experience, so they don't really necessarily talk about those as much. So you're trying to help balance that load a little bit, and then also give better customer service as a result. So this is a beginning to a solution for the customer. When they see this sign, they click on the QR code and they submit their inquiry or their issue, right?
Right. It takes 30 to 60 seconds, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it could be as simple as something as "you suck" and the name and their phone number, and off it goes, right? And then somebody can call and say, "Hey, I got your thing. It says we suck.
Yeah, what can we do better?" Yeah.
Last week I got one, and in each location has its own landing page. So, I got one last week that said your bathrooms are dirty at such and such a location. So sent that off, and obviously they can get the bathroom cleaned up, right? So some of it's super simple, right? To just have them. It's risk mitigation. It's about having a way to go to solve a problem, right? This is a communication channel with the customer. The customer, as human beings, we always feel better when we get it off our chest. So
sure.
You're helping get that emotion out of them. But also when they're sitting, a big one is they're sitting in service and they're sitting in service and they're sitting in service, and something was supposed to take 1 hour and it's at 4 hours and they haven't seen the service advisor, and so all of a sudden they can do something about it. So the customer feels empowered to get some help. And so, anytime you can do that, I think that's helpful as well.
Yeah, and anytime you're improving communication channels, you're doing us all a favor, really. And dealerships should pay attention. Hopefully, I'm going to make sure that dealerships know about this interview, because this information is invaluable to you. And when you open those channels of communication and people feel like you're listening, they're less likely to be reactive and hostile. They're more likely to explain their problem, explain their situation in a concise way so you can help them. And we want to make sure that we understand clearly what the issue is so we can focus our attention on the solution and clear up that problem.
Absolutely. 100%.
Hey, Tom, I can't thank you enough. This has been a real good time visiting with you today.
Thank you.
And I want you to stick around off camera here for a little bit as I exit this show, but I can't thank you enough. We're going to be talking a lot more in the future, and you are a RV game changer. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Bernie.
All right. So without any further ado, we are going to be kind of bouncing out of here. And I want to thank Tom Kline from Better Vantage Point and Always Do Better. And he's been doing a fantastic job all day here with us. And we are so excited that we have lots of other great episodes coming to the RV Game Changer. If you want to reach me, come out to rvgamechanger@gmail.com. You can see me on Facebook, Bernie Culleton, Instagram, Uncle Bernie, the RV guy, and LinkedIn, Bernie Culleton, as well as YouTube, Uncle Bernie Culleton. And we're going to be here next week with Ryan Beckman from dealerbackstock.com. I can't wait to talk to Ryan. And once again, thanks so much, Tom. Have a wonderful day. God bless.